Today we are doing a try a new author video wherein I pick an author who I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like and commit to reading 3 books from them in order for me to get their vibe, to get a sense of what they're about and if they're an author that I would enjoy. I think all of the ones I've done so far I think have been pretty successful, but I guess to, just get right into it. This is definitely the most successful because I think I found a new favorite author. Let's talk about it. We are discussing the amazing Louise Erdrich today. So Louise Erdrich is an author that I have been meaning to try literally since high school. She was one of the sort of contemporary masters that I felt like I should read at some point in my life, and I have not made sufficient time to do that until now. So who is she? What's her deal? I'm trying to see if there's a good little blurb here. Well, it doesn't say much. I think it's kind of burying the lead. It says Louise Erdrich is the author of 15 novels, volumes of poetry, children's books, and a memoir of early motherhood. Her novel, The Roundhouse, won the National Book Award, and The Plague of Doves was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, and won the Ansfield Wolf Book Award. She lives in Minnesota and is the owner of Birch Bark Books. That is a tongue twister. A small independent bookstore. So she shares that with Ann Patchett, being a preeminent literary author who owns a small bookstore in Minnesota. So that, I feel like, is really underselling it. She is definitely considered to be... the person who I kind of most want to compare her to is Toni Morrison, in terms of she is an American author from the 20th century who, when they started writing, it very quickly became apparent that they were going to be I want to say that bitch. I hope that that's not disrespectful, but they're gonna join the canon. And the book that I had always heard from her was Love Medicine. This is her debut novel, and this is the one that I was like, oh, before I die, this is a book I need to read before I die, kind of a thing. Other things to know about her: she is, I believe, a member of the Ojibwe Nation. I apologize if I'm incorrect there, but I believe that is right, because all of her, or most of her books, are set around the res, kind of in Minnesota, South Dakota area. I'm trying to verify. The nice thing is that there's so much addenda onto this edition so that we actually can get some info about her. She grew up in North Dakota, and she's a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe. So yeah, that is correct. There is literally this much just kind of about Love Medicine, including a lot of info about her kind of background of being raised Catholic. Her father, I believe, is of German Catholic descent, and then her mom is Ojibwe and French. So she kind of has that dual identity as an Indigenous person, which I think we see in a lot of Native American literature. But her books are, from what I can tell in general, but definitely the ones I picked, always based in life as an Indigenous person in 20th and 21st century America. That definitely is at least the background, and sometimes it's more in the foreground. Yeah, that definitely underpins all of these books. I believe she also started as a short story writer, and you can really see that in her works. I feel all 3 of these books, you could, I think, in some ways pitch them as interconnected short stories. Maybe more... Love Medicine is definitely the one that most feels that way, but there's a world... there's definitely a world / there are moments in both The Sentence and The Roundhouse that I also feel like they kind of have an interconnected short story vibe to them. Which, if you... I think if I had realized that more, I may have prioritized her earlier, because if I was gonna pick a type of literary fiction that I consistently enjoy, it is interconnected short stories with some kind of magical realism element, and that's definitely the vibe here, even if they're not literally interconnected short stories all the time. There's a lot of magical realism here. I think she explores and incorporates Ojibwe religious traditions or like stories and communal knowledge in really interesting ways. And sometimes that does take the form of kind of magical realism where you have like spirits that seem to be real, or supernatural abilities that in some way seem to be real. The sentence literally involves a ghost haunting a bookstore. So that's definitely very present in all three of these. In terms of the three books I read, I have mentioned them, but let me give you a quick rundown. So Love Medicine is a multi-generational sort of family epic. That's why it really does read like interconnected short stories, because it spans from like the 30s to the late 70s or early 80s. And it's following these families that are all connected to each other and kind of the ways, like the significant events that happen and the ways that shape the family. So that's this one. The Roundhouse is borderline a mystery novel. It definitely has, I would say, a mystery plot engine to it, where we start the book with a horrifying act of SA by the main character's mom, or not by on the main character's mother, and he is trying to find out what happened. It's a coming of age, it's like a coming of age story with a mystery plot. The book that I want to talk about that this reminds me so much of is To Kill a Mockingbird, and this is so much better than To Kill a Mockingbird. But in the same way that book has sort of a legal thriller element to it, I would say this is very similar in that way. And then The Sentence is about a woman who is working at an independent bookstore, dare I say, Birch Bark Books. And their most troublesome customer dies and starts haunting the bookstore. And she's trying to figure out what happened with that. And this is also happening during COVID. So this is like a COVID novel. So I feel like I got a nice range. Like, this is her first book. This one happened during COVID. So like that's a long time. That's a good span of an author's life cycle or output timeline. So I think that I got a good sense of kind of where she started versus where she's kind of currently at. I think what I'm delighted to report is that this is some of the best writing I've ever read. And I can't quite explain what it is, because it's not that it's overly flowery, nor is it sort of like a Hemingway-esque to the point thing, but she just, the details she includes are so well observed. They're so evocative, but without being elaborate, and just that sweet balance of detail and simplicity is just exactly my kind of writing. I love this style of writing, and she's one of the best I've ever read who is doing that. I should also shout out Angela. She, from Literature Science Alliance, she has been my buddy reader for at least 2 of these, and her recommendation is what drove me to pick up The Sentence. So definitely go. She has read, I believe, more than I have. No, not I believe. I know she has read more than I have of her output. So if you would like to hear somebody who's read even more from this author, definitely go check out Angela. And Angela, someday we will figure out the right timing where we both finish the book at the same time. That's the problem, is if I love a book, I really struggle to put it down. So like I was bolting through these, and Angela was like patiently getting there, reading at a much more reasonable pace than I was. So someday we'll figure that timing out to be perfect. But anyway, so we read these 2 together, and then I read this one just recently on my own. So, What can I say about these? So I gave Love Medicine and The Roundhouse 5 stars. For me, that means it is an all-time favorite book. It's not just a favorite of the year. These are 2 of my favorite books of all time. Yeah. And then I gave this 4 stars, which is like an A- kind of a thing. And actually, to be honest, I'm a little relieved I didn't give this a 5, because this makes me trust the 5s I gave these more. Of like, I'm not just in the first blush of being in love with this, or like everything she does is perfect. It's more, it makes these feel more earned. Yeah, okay, I guess I should just tell you my thoughts about each of these. So I would say The Roundhouse is probably the best of these 3. This is a perfect novel in my opinion. But I would say I liked Love Medicine the best. If I were gonna pick between these to this is my favorite, this is the best. I gave them both 5 stars. So I talked about Love Medicine already in a monthly reading wrap up, so maybe I'll start there and like I can kind of be a little more brief because I've already had to talk about why I love this so much. What I love about this is just that everybody involved is so human, and the way that they hurt each other and help each other is so real. And it has, I think this is something I noticed in all 3 of her books. I think the other thing I appreciate about this type of literary fiction is that it is character driven, but it has enough of a supporting through line and plot to make it more than just a character study. I think it is really tough to pull off a book that is purely about a character without it becoming navel-gazy very quickly. And I think this has just enough of plot and through line and intrigue to it that it doesn't ever get to that point where it feels like it's so overtaken by its characters that there's just like, it feels kind of masturbatory almost. It never goes there. I think some of that is because we have so many different points of view because the story is moving through time. So we have people kind of coming in and out of these families, children are being born, and then they start to have points of view. I also think that this is really masterful, or I guess just interesting in the way that it does incorporate the Native American experience, because it's always sort of like this underlying context of what's happening, but it's not foregrounded. And I think that just adds a layer to it that's really interesting and really thought-provoking, and like just makes the story a lot more layered than it would be otherwise. And I think towards the end we have a little bit more like some of like the politics of indigenous life and reservation politics and jurisdiction and stuff like that kind of comes up in some of the ending parts of the story, but it's just so beautiful. Like this is probably the best like multi-generational family story I've ever read. I just love this. I love this. And there's a lot of books that follow these families, and I definitely want to read more of them because I'm just into it. This is for me, this is my thing, and I just love this. So for me, huge hit, and one of my favorite kind of like modern classics I've ever read. It's just so good. The Roundhouse, though, I would say is maybe a perfect novel, because I will say this does very much, it's interconnected short stories. Maybe this is a perfect interconnected short story book, but this is a perfect novel. I haven't seen references to this being her take on To Kill a Mockingbird, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And this is so much better and fixes a lot of the problems that To Kill a Mockingbird has. I don't know, maybe because I'm from the South, I've had to read To Kill a Mockingbird so many times, and I do love it, don't get me wrong. Like, I know not everybody does, and there's definitely critiques, but I do have a lot of affection for that book. I really enjoy it, like, happily would reread. But I do think that there are problems with it, and I think this does that kind of story in a way that is, I don't know, a punch to the gut, I guess. I think because, in To Kill a Mockingbird, we're seeing this child watching her father defending someone who is wrongfully accused of something, of sexual violence. In this one, we're watching a son whose mother has had sexual violence enacted upon her, and his father is like the tribal judge and is trying to figure out how to get justice for his mother in this context of very complicated and overlapping jurisdictional issues that his mother has experienced this explicitly because of her status as a Native American woman. So it is, instead of it being kind of some white saviorism in To Kill a Mockingbird, this is the opposite of that. It's like, how are these marginalized people who have white people coming in and exploiting the complexities of jurisdiction to harm them? What does it look like to try not to spoil things, but like, what does it look like to process that and seek justice, I guess. And he's a 13-year-old boy. I felt like all of that is really lived in, and like it almost has like Stand By Me kind of vibes to it, of like I think it's portraying, I don't know, it's that age where, I don't know, Angela and I were talking about this, and I was saying that like it's the point of coming of age where boys are starting to have theoretically the world open up to them of having endless possibility, and girls start having fewer possibilities because they are seen as being like at risk, basically, or like their sexuality needs to be controlled in some way. So like, don't go out at night alone, you know, watch what you're dressing like, all of that. Versus these boys are like starting to borrow their parents' cars, even though they're too young to drive them, and like biking everywhere they want and drinking, and like, but they still have some of that like naivete of childhood. And he has this really, the main character of this has this really interesting mix of sort of love and sort of wanting his mom, but then also kind of this expectation that he's becoming a man, and he feels that kind of protection over her. So I just think she picks a really perfect age to sort of explore that transition. So like the coming of age part of this, I think, is fantastic. And then it is just within the context of like trying to figure out what exactly happened to his mom, and like the growing realization of how horrifying it is, and all the additional context and plot that ensues around that of just how difficult this situation is. So this book is so good. Explores so many different intersections of identity, to be a little trite there. Still is so interesting for the characters, and then this kind of underlying plot, legal thriller kind of engine that it has, keeps things moving along. So, and the ending of this, oh my God. So yeah, I've rarely read a better constructed novel than this book. Wow. Just wow. What can we say? And then the sentence, I still really enjoyed this. It just is not perfect the way that these two books are. But this is still really enjoyable. If this is like a lesser novel, it's a fantastic lesser novel from a master. And I think this is the title. Sorry, I was circling her name, but the title is a pun, as we come to, or not a pun, but it has like multiple layers of meaning. The more that it gets unpacked, and I don't want to spoil that for you. I would say that the beginning of this and the end of this, I think, are incredibly strong. I think the middle kind of lost its way a little bit, because we have our main character Tuki kind of investigating, like it kind of has like a little bit of a mystery plot engine to it, in the sense that she's trying to figure out why this woman Flora is haunting the bookstore. So that's kind of like in the background. It takes place from All Souls Day 2019 to All Souls Day 2020. So like in the middle of this, we get the pandemic and like the full lockdown. So I will say, if you're not ready to read about that yet, this is not a book for you, because I think it really captures a lot of that really well. But I did think it kind of created some like pacing issues kind of in the middle. And I think Tuki, in contrast to Joe, who I think is a strong enough main character to carry the book, I think Tuki might not be. I just don't think she's as good of a character. So it's not, so when there are plot pacing issues, it's more noticeable to me. This is just obviously all my opinion. But I do think, though, that it has so much charm, especially if you're a book lover. Like, it's set in a bookstore. There's like love of books, and the written word like oozes off of every page. So yeah, in that sense, it's great. And an enjoyable read. I really like this, and I do like that magical realism element. And I really liked the way that this wrapped up in one particular aspect. I wasn't sure what she was going to do, and I think it was the right choice, especially considering this came out in 2021 and it was still so fresh in the pandemic. I'm glad she went that way. But I enjoyed this. I would recommend it. I just don't think it's like a masterpiece in the same way. It's more like, oh, this is another good book from a favorite author of mine. So anyway, I'm gushing. that was the 3 books I read from Louise Erdrich. What are my final thoughts? She, I think, has to be considered a new favorite author. I mean, I have 2 books from this project entering my all-time favorite list. So, and then the other one I still really enjoyed. So I think we're going to have to say she's an all-time favorite author. I highly recommend her. If you are somebody who you need some plot, and maybe that's kind of a barrier sometimes to literary or classic fiction, I think that she could be a really good one, because I'm thinking about the other books I've heard of from her, and most of them sound like they have pretty solid plots in them. So I know sometimes, for me at least, that is frustrating in some lit fic. I'm just to a point where I'm not that impressed at navel gazing. When I was younger, I ate that shit up with a spoon. But my taste now, I want something a little bit more than that to keep the book going, and I think she definitely has that. If you're looking for that, I would definitely recommend the Roundhouse. If you are a short story reader, I would definitely recommend Love Medicine. And if you just love a bookshop tale and you're okay with some COVID times, I think this is also great. So I will definitely be reading more. I want to read all of the books that have the families from Love Medicine. I definitely am interested in that. The Roundhouse has 2 sister novels that are also kind of about justice vis-a-vis the Native American experience. So I definitely would like to read both of those. And then I've heard The Night Watchman is also great, which I'm not sure is in either of those series, but I definitely will read that as well. So I've got quite a Louise Erdrich reading list for myself now. So yeah, I will definitely be reading more from her, and I'm glad that this project pushed me to finally get to her. The other author who I don't know, but I wonder if I'm going to have a similar experience to this, is Isabel Allende. She's the other one that I feel like it's egregious that I haven't read anything from her yet, who's sort of like a modern classic author. So maybe this is inspiration I need to get to that. Try a new author video that I plan to do at some point, because this was such a success. So anyway, that is my try a new author video. I don't think you're going to see me until the end of the month. There's a lot going on, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But yeah, I'll see you guys at the end of the month. But let me know if you've read Louise Erdrich. Let me know if you have recommendations about where I should go next. And if you haven't read Louise Erdrich, have I sold you on giving her a try? Let me know in the comments. I hope you guys are doing well. Take care of yourself. Take care of your neighbors. And yeah, if you liked it, hit the bell if you want to know when I post. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye!